লাস্ট ডেতে আমরা যতটা করেছিলাম আর কি, সেখানে তোমার রেফারেন্সটা ছিল যে ওখানকার যে তোমার তোমার যে ন্যারেটর, সেই ন্যারেটরের স্পিচে আমরা একদিকে যেমন দেবদত্তা, অন্যদিকে তেমনি কপিলা সম্পর্কে আমরা পেয়েছি, তার সম্পর্কে ডেসক্রিপশন ছিল, এবং সেই সময় এরকম একটা মেনশনিং ছিল যে স্ক্রিম অফ টেরার ইজ হার্ড অফ স্টেজ, the Bhagavata frowns, quickly looks in the direction of the scream, then carries on, এই ব্যাপারগুলো ছিল। এবং সেখানে ওদের রিলেশনশিপ নিয়ে বলছিল যে এই যে ধর্মপুরা বলে যে জায়গাটার কথা এখানে পাচ্ছি, সেখানে বলছে যে আমাদের দেবদত্তা আর হচ্ছে কপিলা, they have been treated as love and Kush, Ram and Lakshmana, Krishna and Balarama, এবং সেখানটা গান হচ্ছে আর কি, two friends there were, one mind one heart, and the scream is heard again, the Bhagavata cannot ignore it anymore, আবার সেই স্ক্রিমটা হচ্ছে, কিসের স্ক্রিম? এবং আমরা দেখতে পাচ্ছি the scream is heard again, the Bhagavata cannot ignore it anymore, and then it says, who would that be creating a disturbance at the very outset of our performance, and looks, oh, it's Nata, Noto আর কি, যেটা বলছিলাম আগে, our actor, and he is running. What could have happened? I wonder. The actor comes running in, trembling with fear. He rushes onto the stage, runs round the stage once, then sees the Bhagavata and grabs him. But basically, আমরা বলেছিলাম আমি তোমাদের যে the primary concern of this particular text is Hayavadana. So literally, we will find that Hayavadana, this particular character, is to be considered as of utmost importance. What happens, that this particular actor who is running in and trembling with fear, he rushes on to the stage, runs down the stage once, and then sees the Bhagavata and grabs him. He bolche say, "Sir, Bhagavata, sir," and Bhagavata trying to free himself. What's this? What's this? The actor says, "Sir, oh my God, God," and Bhagavata, "Let me go. I tell you, let go of me," and freeing himself. Now, what is this word? And the actor is stammering at this moment. I, oh God, and grabs him again. "Let me go." The actor moves back. What nonsense is this? What do you mean by all this shouting and screaming in front of our audience too? So how dare you? You see, how dare to disturb? And the actor cries, "Please, please, I'm sorry, but," and it's a kind of a suspense that have been created. Bhagavata then calmly says, now, calm down. There is nothing to be afraid of here. I'm here. The musicians are here, and there is our large-hearted audience. It may be that they fall asleep during a play sometimes. So আমি তোমাদের আগেও বলেছি যে whenever we find such a kind of a description has been made, we find that to some extent the person or maybe the character who is performing, to some extent he is creating a kind of a link between the play and the characters who are sitting on off stage. That means the audience. এই যে দেখো কি বলছে এখানে, যে and there is the large-hearted audience. It may be that they fall asleep during a play sometimes, but they are ever alert when someone is in trouble. Now tell us what's the matter. কখনো কখনো তারা ঘুমিয়ে পড়ে ঠিকই, যারা আর কি ওখানে দর্শকরা রয়েছে, কিন্তু কেউ সমস্যায় পড়লে তখন কিন্তু তারা ওখানে ব্যাপারটাকে নিয়ে ভাবে। And then you will see that the actor then panting, oh, my heart is going to burst, and sit down, sit right. Now tell me everything quietly, slowly. And then the actor responds. The actor says, "I was on my way here. I was already late, didn't want to annoy you, so I was hurrying down when one covers his face with his hands." Actually, what happens, that she actually met the Hayavadana. Okay. So here it says, Bhagavata says, he says, "You are hurrying on." Then an actor continues, "I'm shivering. On the way, you see, I had drunk a lot of water this morning. My stomach was full. So to relieve myself and watch what you're saying, remember, you are on stage." So আমি তোমাদের আগেও বলেছিলাম যে আমরা যে টিপিক্যাল এপিক থিয়েটারের কনভেনশন পাই, যেগুলো আর কি বাটল ব্রেকটেড এপিক থিয়েটার, সেই কনভেনশনটায় সবসময় কিন্তু এগুলো বলে যে সামহাউ যে প্যাটার্ন অফ ড্রামাটা আমরা দেখে অভ্যস্ত, এইগুলো কিন্তু সেই ধরনের ড্রামাটাকে রিইনস্টেট করে না। এগুলো কোথাও যেন তোমাকে বোঝায় যে আলটিমেটলি, এই যে বললাম আগের দিন তোমাকে বলছিলাম সেলফ রিফ্লেক্সিভ নোশন নিয়ে চলে, তোমাকে দেখাবে, তোমাকে বলবে আর কি, বোঝাবে যে আলটিমেটলি আমি তুমি মানে তুমি একটা তোমার অডিটোরিয়ামের মধ্যে রয়েছো, তুমি যাকে দেখছো তারা আসলে পারফরমার্স, তারা রিয়েল ক্যারেক্টার্স নয়, তারা বাস্তব জীবনে ডিফারেন্ট কাইন্ডস অফ ক্যারেক্টার, এবং তারা কোনো একটা রোল প্লে করছে, যার জন্য তোমাকে এগুলো মনে করাবে। ওকে, এটা কিন্তু একটা টিপিক্যাল মডার্ন ওয়ে অফ লুকিং ইনটু থিংস। এখানে দেখা বলছে যে what are you saying, remember we were on stage, and the actor says I didn't do anything, I only wanted to, so I sat by the side of the road and was about to pull up my dhoti when yes, a voice, a deep thick voice, it said, কি বলছে সেটা বলছে, hey you there, don't you know you are not supposed to commit nuisance on the main road? That means you were trying to urinate and just beside the road, and it is not proper, it is improper, it is not civil. And Bhagavata says, quite right too, you should have known that much. And the actor continues, I half got up and looked around, and when I looked around, not a man in sight, no one, so I was about to sit down again. When the same voice said, মানে আমি যখন দেখতে পেলাম ওখানে কোনো মানুষ নেই, তখন সেই একই ভয়েস বলে উঠলো, কি বলে উঠলো, yes, you irresponsible fellow, can't you understand you are not to commit nuisance on the main road? I looked up again, and there, right in front of me, across the fence, who was there? And the actor answers, a horse. And Bhagavata, taken aback, he was surprised. Bhagavata says, what, a horse? And the actor says, yes, a horse. And it was talking. And Bhagavata continues, what did you have to drink this morning? So generally what happens when the Bhagavata, after hearing or listening to the words of the actor, Bhagavata says that it can be possible. It is only possible if you are drunk and you are hallucinating. The actor says, nothing, I swear. I haven't taken anything. And Bhagavata said, I haven't been near to tortoise shop for a whole week. I didn't even have milk today. So where is the drink from? And Bhagavata continues, perhaps your liver is sensitive to water. And the actor was desperate. Please believe me, I saw it clearly. It was a horse, and it was talking. And Bhagavata resigned. Bhagavata says, it's no use continuing this nonsense. So you saw a talking horse. Good. Now go and get made up. Actor says, made up? I fall to your feet, so I can't. So ultimately you were stating that I have to go to the horse and try to identify that what is happening or not or something. And the actor says, I cannot do that. And Bhagavata, now look here. Oh, actor, please. He holds up his hand, it's trembling. You see, sir, how can I hold up a show with this? How can I fight? And Bhagavata thinks, well then, there is only one solution left. And what is the solution? You go back. The actor, again surprised, back. And Bhagavata, back to the fence. Have another look and make sure for yourself that whoever was talking, it couldn't have been the horse. That means you have to check and recheck the particular situation, the particular matter. That, okay, it's true that you are stating that it was horse that is speaking, but I know that it's not kind of possible. So it is better for you to return to that particular place and make a kind of a recheck that what you have stated, what you have said, that the horse is speaking. Now you have to move there, and you have to move backward and identify whether the horse is actually speaking or not. The actor says no, and Bhagavata, not a. And actor, I can't. And Bhagavata, it's an order. An actor pleading, must I? Yes, you must. Sir, the Bhagavata turns to the audience and starts singing. So ultimately we'll find that it is a theatrical orientation that is at the forefront. Ultimately you can find that somehow, as I mentioned, that these are, whether it is the matter by like Bhagavata, or it is the matter or character like the actor, you will find that there's such a kind of a conversation. It seems to be ludicrous to us because, you know, that whenever we will find that the character, like actor is speaking, he's performing on stage, it seems to be ludicrous because the behavior, the typical kind of wordings that he's using, and obviously the the pattern of gesticulations or something, it creates a kind of ludicrosity there. And ultimately, as we know that we are, if you think in terms of an audience who have entered the theater to take a look at a play like Hayavadana, and then here is a particular reference to a talking horse. Then, because as I mentioned earlier, that the term Hayavadana is actually referring to a kind of the face of a horse, and the transposed heads and these kinds of orientations are always there. So a kind of incompletion is always being suggested in the particular title. And what happens, that at the very beginning, at the very onset of this particular play, the actor and Bhagavata, the kind of conversation that they are in, okay, apparently it seems to be ludicrous, apparently it seems to be meaningless, and ultimately we'll find that each and every kind of wordings, these are indicating some kind of, some introductory speeches regarding the main action of this particular play. Okay, and ultimately at the end of this particular play, we will find that how this particular reference to Hayavadana, this particular reference to the horse, and the main plot, that is, the triangle, okay, the love triangle that is between Devadatta and Kapila and Padmini. So all this will come into one single note. So generally what happens here, that Bhagavata says again, that the Bhagavata turns to the audience and starts singing. What he says, Bhagavata says, two friends there were, one mind, one heart. Are you still there? The actor goes out looking at the Bhagavata and hoping for the last minute reply. He doesn't come. A poor boy, God alone knows what he saw and what he took it to be. There is truth for you, pure illusions. So ultimately you will find that somehow Bhagavata do not believe the wordings, the words that have been delivered by Nata, and then he continues singing. He says, two friends there were, one mind, one heart. And again, a scream in the wings. The actor comes rushing in, now look here. And the actor says, it's coming, it's coming. And Bhagavata says, what's coming? And the actor continues, him, he is coming, and rushes out. Bhagavata says, him, it, what is coming? So, that the pronoun that is being used, either you will say it's a him that can identify that it is actually indicating towards a human being, and when it is not a human being but an animal, then it should be pronounced as it. And then, in a particular kind of a mixed orientation, him and it, both these terms have been incorporated. So Bhagavata says, him, it, what's coming? Whatever or whoever it is, the actor has obviously been frightened by its sight. So ultimately, I don't know whether it's a man or whether it's a horse, but I must state that this actor is frightened, okay? If even a hardened actor like him gets frightened, it is more than likely that our gentle audience may get frightened too. That means, here Bhagavata is stating that the actor who is a person, who has much more courage than the general people or general audience, then if the actor got frightened by just looking at that particular person or the particular animal, then it might be possible that the audience will also be frightened too. So it is not proper to let such a sight walk on stage unchallenged, and to the wings hold up the entry curtain. That means it must not happen today, that it must not come to there. So two stage hands enter and hold up a half curtain of 6 feet in height, the sort of curtain used in Jakshagna or Kathakali. Okay, the curtain masks the entry of Hayavadana, who comes and stands behind it. So it's also a theatrical orientation that is being happening, you see. And at the same time, what is significant, what is important here, as you can see, that somehow, the dramatic suspense has been molded up. Okay, who is that? And no reply. Only the sound of someone sobbing behind the curtain. So you see, at the very beginning, when the first appearance of Hayavadana is taken at the particular motion, you will find somehow that Hayavadana enters the stage sobbing. And towards the end of this particular play, we will find that Hayavadana will laugh. Okay, the laughing will be there. So here you will find that no reply, only the sound of someone sobbing behind the curtain. And then he continues, Bhagavata says, how strange. Someone is sobbing behind the curtain. It looks as though the terror which frightened our actor is itself now crying. So we have already traced, we have already found that somehow the actor got frightened, and now we have found that the person or maybe the animal who actually made the actor frightened. Now he has entered the stage and now he is crying. The stage hand lowered the curtain. The curtain is lowered by about a foot. One sees Hayavadana's head, which is covered by a veil. At a sign from the Bhagavata, one of the stage hands removed the veil, revealing a horse's head. For a while, the horse head doesn't realize that it is exposed to the gaze of the audience. The moment the realization dawns, the head ducks behind the curtain. কিছুটা সময়ের জন্য ভেইলটাকে সরিয়ে দিচ্ছে, অডিয়েন্সরা হায়াভাদানার হেডটাকে দেখতে পাচ্ছে, that is the horse's head. But you know that Hayavadana was completely unaware of this particular situation, that he was under the gaze of the audience, and when he could, identify or understand what is happening there, he is ducking to some extent, okay, behind the curtain. And Bhagavata cries, "A horse! No, it can't be." And he makes a sign. The curtain is lowered a little more, just enough to show the head again. Again it ducks. Again the curtain is lowered. This goes on until the curtain is lowered right down to the floor. So in a theatrical orientation, in a mocking way, okay, to create some kind of laughter among the audience or something, this particular recognition phase is actually going on. And now the full body of Hayavadana is visible. Hayavadana, who has a man's body but a horse's head, is sitting on the floor, hiding his head behind his knees. And Bhagavata cries, "Incredible, unbelievable." At a sign from Bhagavata, the stage hands withdraw. And then Bhagavata goes and stands near Hayavadana. Then he grunts to himself, as though he has seen through the trick. "Who are you?" And Hayavadana lifts his head, wipes the tears away. The Bhagavata beckons to him to come center stage. "Come here." And Hayavadana hesitates, then comes forward. First, you go around scaring people with this stupid mask. So ultimately here you will find Bhagavata doesn't believe actually that it is a kind of entity or kind of existence where the horse head is there and the human body. So that's why he is stating, to some extent he's believing that this man is wearing a mask of a horse. And that's why he's stating, first you go around scaring people with this stupid mask, and then you have the cheek to disturb our show with your clowning. প্রথমে তুমি মানুষজনকে ভয় দেখিয়েছো, আর এইবার তুমি আমাদের যে শোটা, যে ড্রামাটা চলছে, সেটাকে তুমি তোমার এই ক্লাউনিং দিয়ে সেটাকে ডিস্টার্ব করছো। Have you a sense of proportion? Enough of this nonsense now. Take it off, I say. Take it off that stupid mask. And then Hayavadana doesn't move. You won't? Then I will have to do it myself. And holds Hayavadana's head with both his hands and tries to pull it off. ভাবছে ওটা mask আর কি, এবং সেটাকে টানাটানি করছে সেটাকে। And Hayavadana doesn't resist. Oh, it's tight. Not my dear actor. And the actor comes in, barely, and stands open-mouthed at the sight he sees. "Why are you standing here? Don't you see you are taken in by a silly mask? Come and help me and take it off now." The actor comes and holds Hayavadana by his waist, while the Bhagavata pulls at his head. Okay, and Hayavadana offers no resistance, but can't help moaning when the pain becomes unbearable. The tug of war continues for a while. Slowly the truth dawns on the Bhagavata. So ultimately, you will find somehow that whenever, that in a typical modern orientation, in a typical modern society where we are actually living, ultimately it seems to be, it is impossible. And how can it be possible that there is a person who is sitting there or standing there? Ultimately, he is a human being, and ultimately he is carrying goat head. Or maybe it's the horse's head. So generally, what Bhagavata and actor actually do there, what they are doing, to some extent, that is the actual temperament of the audience. That somehow, as I mentioned here, I've already mentioned that the typical orientation of the play that Girish Karnad is creating. Generally, in the typical modern orientation, the first thing that comes to our mind that being a writer, being a playwright, being a performer of the 20th century, okay, or maybe the 21st century to be specific. Now, how can it be possible that such a kind of a theatricality is being used by Girish Karnad on stage? Because we know quite well that this particular kind of orientation of Hayavadana, that the head is of the horse and then the human body, all these, to some extent, it brings us the question that how can it be possible that a writer, a playwright, or a playwright is creating such kind of ambience, is creating such kind of theatrical prop to justify his own argument here. Because we know in the 21st century it's not possible. Okay, because it is not a mythical kind of an orientation that is taking on simply. Okay, it's not a simple myth. It is not a simple fairy tale that we are going on or going through. So fundamentally, if you think in terms of the kind of visibility or the kind of theatricality that Karnad is imposing here, it seems to be ludicrous. It seems to be impossible to us. But whenever you will find that somehow the primary focus of this particular text is based on a particular kind of a theory. I will come to the theory later when I will deal with Bhagavata, it's Devadatta and Kapila and Padmini. Then ultimately I will state that what is happening there, why such a kind of a mythical orientation is being taken here. Okay, so fundamentally that is the thing. I will come to that later. So the apparent impossibility that is being created by such a kind of an orientation, all these things have to be negated here at the very opening and the very beginning. So therefore you will find that the condition or the situation where Bhagavata and Nata they are in, such was the orientation, such was the mental setup of the audience or the spectators, and such was the mental condition of the readers like us too. Okay, we consider that it's not possible, it's impossible. How can it be possible? So these are the questions that we are creating. And here you will find that the actor comes and holds Hayavadana by his waist, while the Bhagavata pulls at the head, and Hayavadana offers no resistance, but can't help moaning when the pain becomes unbearable. The tug of war continues for a while. Slowly, the truth dawns on the Bhagavata. And then he says, Nata, this isn't a mask. It's his real head. And the actor drops Hayavadana with a thud. And Hayavadana gets up and sits as before, head between knees. And truly, the surprise will never cease. If someone had told me only 5 minutes ago that there was a man with a horse's head, I would have laughed out in his face. And to Hayavadana, who are you? Okay, you are not, it's not seeming to be a human being, it's not an animal either. So who are you? And Hayavadana gets up and starts to go out. The actor hurriedly moves out of his way. And it continues. Wait, what's that? That's our green room there. It is bad enough that you scared this actor. We have a play to perform today, okay? And Hayavadana stands dejected and softly says, who are you? And there is no reply. What brought you to this? Was it a curse of some rishi, or was it some holy place of pilgrimage, a punnasthan, which you desecrated? So what is the cause? Or could it be that you insulted a pativrata, dedicated to the service of a husband? Or did you, the multiple references, the multiple possibilities? Because in the mythical structure, in the mythical tales, we find that such kind of orientation is always associated with any particular kind of a curse. Hayavadana starts speaking. He says, Bhagavata is taken away, and Hayavadana says, what do you mean, sir? Do you think just because you know the Puranas, You can go about showering your Sanskrit on everyone in sight. So it is true that you know something about the Quran, you know something about the mates. So do you think that each and every moment you will dump your knowledge on everything? What temple did I desecrate? What woman did I insult? What? And he continues actually. And Bhagavata then says, don't get annoyed. Hayavadana, what else? What Rishi? What sage? What? Who have I wronged? What have I done to anyone? Let anyone come forward and say that I have done him any wrong. I haven't. I know I haven't yet. And he is on the point of beginning to sob again. So such a kind of incompletion is being suggested here. In our last lecture, I was discussing on the matter of incompletion or incompleteness. And here you will find that Hayavadana couldn't find any particular reason why he is bearing such a kind of a life as it is. Bhagavata says, don't take it to heart so much. What happened? What's your grief? You are not alone here. I am here. The musicians are here. And there is our large-hearted audience. It may be that they fall asleep during a play sometimes. So the reaction of the audience is always being mocked at. Hayavadana says, what can anyone do? So anyone only can sleep in front of my pains and sufferings. It's my fate. What is your name? Hayavadana. And how did you get this horse's head? And Hayavadana says, I was born with it. And then Bhagavata says, then why didn't you stop us when you tried to take it off? Why did you put up with our torture? And Hayavadana says, all my life, I have been trying to get rid of this head. I thought, you with all your goodness and punya, if at least you manage to pull it off, so I maybe get relieved. And Bhagavata says, oh, poor man. But Hayavadana, what can anyone do about a head one is born with? Who knows what error committed in the last birth is responsible? So again, another particular term has been introduced. That it's possible that you have committed some harm, some crime in your last birth and you are bearing that particular result today. Hayavadana says, annoyed. He says, it was nothing to do with my last birth. It is this birth which I cannot shake off. And Bhagavata, tell us what happened. Don't feel ashamed. Hayavadana, enraged, angry, ashamed? Me? Why should I? And Bhagavata, sorry, I beg your pardon. I should have said shy. And Hayavadana, gloomy. It's a long story. And Bhagavata says, carry on. And then you will find that Hayavadana actually narrates his own story. What does Hayavadana say? Hayavadana says, my mother was the princess of Karnataka. Okay, so ultimately you will find some information have been provided. And when there are some informations, you know that these are some important sections for your 5 marks questions on something. The tale of Hayavadana, or maybe what did Hayavadana, or maybe the question may come that, describe the particular kind of an encounter that's happening between Bhagavata and Hayavadana. And what impression of the character does it reflect? Okay, so my mother was the princess of Karnataka. She was a very beautiful girl. When she came of age, her father decided that she should choose her own husband. So princes of every kingdom in the world were invited. And they all came. So that is the tale of Hayavadana's mother, as you can see. From China, from Persia, from Africa, the princes came from different sections of the world. But she didn't like any one of them. The last one to come was the Prince of Araby, this Arab. My mother took one look at the handsome prince, sitting on his great white stallion, and she fainted. Stallion means horse. An actor says, Hayavadana, her father at once decided that this was the man. All arrangements for the wedding were made. My mother woke up, and do you know what she said? An actor says what? She said she would only marry that horse. An actor says what? Yes, she wouldn't listen to anyone. The Prince of Araby burst a blood vessel. The actor says naturally, and Hayavadana, no one could dissuade her. So ultimately, she was married off to the white stallion. She lived with him for 15 years. And one morning she wakes up, and no horse. In its place stood a beautiful celestial being, a Gandharva. Apparently, this celestial being had been cursed by the god Kuvera, that is Kuber, to be born a horse for some act of misbehavior. After 15 years of human love, he had become his original self again. So that was the story actually. And Bhagavata says, I must admit several such cases are on record. And Hayavadana continues, released from his curse, he asked my mother to accompany him to his heavenly abode, just because he is the Gandharva, and ultimately now it is the time for return. And when he asks the mother to take the journey and commit the journey with him to the heaven, then the mother actually replied, but she wouldn't. She said she would come only if he became a horse again, because she actually loved that horse, not the Gandharva. So he cursed her. The actor says no. And Hayavadana, he cursed her to become a horse herself. So my mother became a horse and ran away happily. My father went back to his heavenly abode. Only I, the child of their marriage, was left behind. And Bhagavata says it's a sad story. A very sad. What would I do now, Bhagavata said. Shekhane bolche je only I, the child of the marriage, was left behind. And Bhagavata says it's a sad story, which is very sad. And Hayavadana, what should I do now, Bhagavata said? What can I do to get rid of this head? So ultimately now I am carrying the head of a horse, and what should I do to get rid of this head? And Bhagavata says, Hayavadana, what is written on your foreheads cannot be altered. And Hayavadana then slapping himself on the forehead. Okay? But what a forehead! What a forehead! If it was a forehead like yours, I would have accepted anything. But this, that means if I were a human being, then ultimately I would obviously think about my future. But now I am carrying the head of a horse. So where is the forehead? But this, I have tried to accept my fate. My personal life has naturally been blameless. Okay? So I took interest in the social life of the nation. I was thinking about civics and politics and patriotism, nationalism, Indianization, the socialist pattern of society. I have tried everything. But where is my society? Where? You must help me to become a complete man, Bhagavata said. But how? What can I do? That means I have tried everything. I have tried to venture into civics, politics, patriotism, nationalism, Indianization, socialist pattern of society, everything. But where is my society? Where? So you must help me to become a complete man. Because now I am leading a particular life of half man, half horse. So and in completion is continuing. I want to get the complete self, a complete form. So after this particular wordings from Hayavadana, there is a long silence. They are thinking. And Bhagavata answers, Benaras. Hayavadana says, what? Bhagavata says, if you go to Benaras and make a vow in front of the god there, and then Hayavadana says, I have tried that, didn't work. The actor says, Rameshwar. Hayavadana says, Benaras, Rameswaram, Gokarn, Haridwar, Gaya, Kedarnath. Not only those, but the Dargah of Khwaja Yusuf Baba, the grotto of our Virgin Mary. So it is not simply regarding the Hindus, rather the Muslims, okay, or maybe the Christians. I have done everything. So not only those, but the Dargah of Khwaja Yusuf Baba, the grotto of our Virgin Mary. I have tried them all. Everything I have tried. Magicians, mendicants, maharshis, fakir, saints, sadhus, sadhus with short hair, sadhus with beards, sadhus in saffron, sadhus in the altogether hanging, singing, rotating, grating, on the spikes in the air, underwater, under the ground. I have covered them all. Okay. So where there is a particular streak of light, I always try to identify, I always try to find if they could help me. And what did I get out of all this? Everywhere I went, I had to cover my head with a veil. And I started going bald. Okay? Each and everywhere I have to cover my head. And now I have started going bald and pause shyly, I hate this head. But I just can't help being fond of this lovely long mane. I despise this head, but not this mane. I'm in love with this mane. So I had to give this miss to Tirupati and long silence. So can you see that ultimately in these wordings or these kinds of orientations, actually Girish Karnad is to some extent mocking. He's criticizing the pattern of life that we are leading. Okay, the typical kind of religious life leading that we are continuing regarding Christianity and Hinduism and everything you see. And there is long silence. Bhagavata says, come to think of it, Hayavadana, why don't you try the Kali of Mount Chitrakoot? Hayavadana says, anything you say? And Bhagavata, it's a temple at the top of the Mount Chitrakoot. The goddess there is famous for being ever awake to Jagruto Arki, to the call of devotees. Thousands used to flock to the temple at once. No one goes now though. So it was once famous, but now it is not so much. And Hayavadana says, why not? Bhagavata says she used to give anything anyone asked for. As the people become aware of this, they stop going. Hayavadana says, fools. And Bhagavata says, why don't you try that? And Hayavadana jumps up, why not? I will start at once. And then what happens, Bhagavata could, but I don't think you should go alone. Because it's a wild road. You will have to ask a lot of people, which won't be easy for you because you are, half man and half horse. So, and to the actor, you would better go with him. Actor says, me. And Bhagavata, yes. That way you can make up for having insulted him. And Hayavadana, but Bhagavata said, may I point out that this roadside manners, an actor says, there, he is insulting me now. Let him find his own way. What do I care? So again, the roadside manners of urinating and something, he is actually criticizing that. And that's why the actor is behaving in that way. And Bhagavata says, come, don't let us start fighting now. And to Hayavadana, don't worry. There is no highway there, only a cart track at best. And to the actor, you have no reason to feel insulted. Actually, you should admire him. Even in his dire need, he doesn't lose his civic sense. Be off now. And Hayavadana to the actor, please, don't get upset. I won't bother you, promise. And to the Bhagavata, I'm most grateful. And Bhagavata blessing him. May you become successful in your search for completeness and the true goal. And each one of this, Bhagavata continues actually. So each one of his own fate, each one of his own desire, each one of his own lack. Okay, fate, desire, and lack. So let us now turn to our story. So now Bhagavata begins to tell the particular story of the main one. That is, there is a particular reference to Devadatta and Kapila.